Hey you. And before we get into solving a mystery of our very own, I would like to let you know that this video is sponsored by the murder mystery box, Hunt a Killer. Hunt a Killer is a subscription service that puts you in the detective's seat. Every month, they send you a box of evidence in the case of a fictional crime. Your goal, detective, is to analyze the evidence, eliminate suspects, and hone in on the real killer. In the boxes they send you every month, you get reports, audio recordings, videos, photos, which you carefully go through looking for clues, hidden or otherwise. They sent me a season, and honestly I stayed in for hours at a time, enjoying the hell out of it, and staying in these days is probably a good idea. So if you think you'd be interested, please check out huntakiller.com/thatchapter and use code CHAPTER for 20% off your first box. Also, part of the proceeds of every box go to the Cold Case Foundation, an organization that is dedicated to helping with real-life cold cases, which is something I think we can all get on board with. So, once again, if you think you'd be interested, that's huntakiller.com/thatchapter and use code CHAPTER at checkout for 20% off your first box. Thanks again to Hunt a Killer for once again sponsoring one of these old videos. Now, how about you and I do some Hunt a Killering of our own? Yeah. Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and you know what? Let's just change things up a bit. How are you doing? You know, what's your name? How are you feeling today? I mean, that's a real question here. I should be asking, but I mean, at the time of this recording, I can't hear you. So let's move on. In this old video, we're going to Alabama. East Alabama to be precise. Russell and Lee counties, combined population over 200,000 people. In 2002, whoa, what a year. Two men, a Michael Carruth and a Jimmy Brooks, Dumb and Dumber had a plan, a list, a to-do list, a shopping list. Of sorts. It was not a good one. But is it ever? Let's have a go. Is this the first time we're going to Alabama? Because it sure feels like it. And in this particular story, we're going to Opelika, Alabama. That's a fun thing to say. This is East Alabama, Lee County. On the 30th of January 2002, at about 8 AM, a woman named Katrina Ratliff called her mother Katrin, who lived in Opelika. Katrina would call her mother Katrin every morning about that time, just as Katrina was getting into work, and her mammy Katrin was having a nice old cup of joe. This particular morning, though, Katrina couldn't get through to her mother as she usually did.
Hey, it's me. I'm just worried about y'all. I haven't heard from you at all. Please call me when you get in. Talk to you later. Bye.
Katrina would actually try to call her mother quite a few times as the hours went by, each time not being able to get through, getting no answer, and nobody calling her back. After she couldn't get through and hours were passing, Katrina started to worry, and so left work early, popped out for a little bit, and went to her parents' house. As she got closer, she started feeling off. This wasn't like them. Especially when she arrived and found the cars still there. She went around the back and found the door kicked in. Inside, she found her dad, Thurman, lying face down in a pool of blood. Going further into the house, she found her mother in the bedroom. Same situation. She then tried to call the police, but when she picked up the phone, there was no dial tone. The line had been cut. Thurman, Katrina's dad, had been shot 3 times, with the fatal shot being to the back of the head. Catherine, the exact same, 3 shots, one of which was to the head. It seemed apparent that both Thurman and Catherine had been tortured before being shot. The house had been turned upside down. It seemed that whoever did this was looking for something of value. The attic, the vents, the cabinets, all had been like ripped apart as someone was trying to find something. It wasn't searched that well though, even though like they had ripped the place to shite because the police found 87 grand hidden in the bathroom. So, home invasion by the lucky sea. The investigation revealed little. However, it seemed that there were 2 weapons involved, 2 handguns that had done the shooting, so they possibly had 2 suspects to hunt. They also found footprints in the mud leading to the house. And so, following them back, they found tire tracks. That, at the time, was all they had, though it seemed likely that they may have known the victims from the way the house was torn apart. One suspect was an ex-boyfriend of Katrina's, who, 10 years earlier, after they broke up, kidnapped Katrina and sexually assaulted and tortured her, and then made threats to her parents. He did time for that, obviously, but on the 30th of January 2002, he was in a jail 100 miles away from Opelika, Alabama. After that led nowhere, the authorities were stumped. So, yeah. Alright, so now let's fast forward a fortnight, 2 weeks, 14 days, shitload of hours. On Sunday, the 17th of February, in Phoenix City, right smack dab between Lee and Russell counties, a man named Forrest Butch Boyer, 54 years old, was getting his son Brett ready for another one of those, weeks at school, packing the sandwiches, ham again, getting the clothes ready, and so on and so forth. Butch was a single father. He owned a used car lot, and was doing the best for his son. That evening, as bedtime was, approaching at around 10 p.m, Butch heard a, knock on his front door. Strange that somebody would be knocking, so late on a school night, and Butch was, immediately suspicious. So when he went over, opened the door, he saw it was the cops. The Rozzers at this time of day, they flashed badges and shoved a warrant in his face, saying he was under arrest for drugs possession. He vigorously denied, but they cuffed him, taking him out of his house to a white Crown Victoria parked outside. Once there, Butch asked what to do about his son who was alone in the house. Then, the 2 cops went back to the house and cuffed the 12-year-old boy and put him in the back of the car beside his old man. Now at this point, you're probably thinking, wow, what odd cops. They don't even sound like cops at all. And you'd be right. Butch Boyer realized this as well as they drove past the Phoenix City Police Department and out to where Route 431 was being constructed. They then parked the car, turned around and asked him about a safe they thought he had in his house, containing about 100 grand. Now Butch didn't have a safe, but he did have cash. So they then drove all the way back to his house. Butch gave them 40 grand he had in cash hidden in his closet, and then again the 4 of them drove back to the construction site that would eventually be US 431. Now this time, the 4 of them got out of the car. Butch, and Brett, his son, still handcuffed, and they started walking. Butch, now pleading with them to let him and his son go. He'd given them the money, just let him go, when they walked and saw they had already dug a grave. One of the men then slit Butch's neck wide open, ear to ear. And, after young Brett pled for his father's life, the other man shot Brett 3 times in the head. Brett was then thrown into the grave. Butch's throat cut open again, and he too was tossed in, rolling onto his son's body. And the 2 men started throwing dirt in the hole. They then left. Only Butch wasn't dead. He managed, with his throat cut, to dig himself and his son out. Unfortunately, young Brett was already gone. Butch, covered in blood and dirt, holding his throat together with his hands, somehow managed to stumble in the dark through the thorns and bushes to a nearby road, and attempted to flag down a passing motorist. One finally stopped, and 911 were called.
911, what's your emergency? I got a guy standing on the side of the road, and he's bleeding really bad, and they said he's dead, and they said somebody killed his son.
He refused to leave until they found his son.
Sir, you got any idea what your name is? Come here. The ambulance is here, sir. Hold on. Right there.
My boys were shot 3 times.
Okay. Hold on, sir. Hold on. All right. Hold on, sir. Hold on. Okay, ambulance is here.
I'll get my boys first.
All right.
You
All right, sir, hold on real quick. What's your name?
Butch.
Butch what?
Warrior.
Spell it.
B-O-Y-E-R. B-O-W-Y-E-R.
What's your name, sir? I mean, what's your birthday?
3247.
Okay, he said his son's been shot 3 times down there, been buried. We're gonna have to take him down there. Okay. All right. Okay, what can we do with him?
Where is it?
What? Down here. He's cut bad.
I dug out the grave a while ago.
What? Who shot you? Who did this?
Dennis wrote some right. That grave.
Hey, Lon? No bullshit. I got a man, his throat's been cut to hell. He said his son's been shot 3 times, is buried in a grave down here at Uchi, and he wants to go get him. He was buried and dug himself out. This is a bad one. Okay? I mean, I don't mean to sound excited, but this is bad.
When the emergency services, cops and paramedics and all arrived, Butch was so worked up, his throat was still cut open, that the only way he would let them treat him was when they said to him, listen, if you die, and you will, if you don't let us treat you, then the people who did this will get away. That very night, Butch was able to give the police a description of the white Crown Victoria that had abducted him and his son, and he told them these 2 guys had his house keys.
Is anybody at your home?
No, they got keys in my house. They're probably in it.
Okay. 5715 to Russell.
Phoenix police were immediately alerted and went straight to the Boyer home. After less than 30 minutes surveilling the home, a white Crown Vic drove past, with a man named Michael Carruth inside. They followed him, and he was arrested. And inside the white Crown Vic, they found handcuffs, police uniforms, a shitload of money, and blood. 43-year-old Michael Carruth denied having anything to do with, well, anything. He was a bail bondsman with no criminal past or history. He was taken to the Russell County Sheriff's Department and the car impounded. He didn't confess, as I said, he denied any involvement. He was just, going for a late night drive, you know yourself, sure. He didn't cooperate at all with the police. Said he had nothing to do with whatever they were on about. What are you yapping about? Come on.
But you know and I know that I have not harmed anybody. You know that and I know that. I'm not even asking you to agree or disagree. Okay? I know in my heart what I did or did not do. Okay? And I can live with myself.
This was because, well, he thought there were no witnesses. He thought Butch was dead, which I think would be a logical assumption after what they did to him. But it would be Michael who would be dead. Dead wrong. Butch being alive came as a surprise, you might say, to Michael. At which point, though he still, denied anything, he told the police about, some vague people he may or may not know, but he wouldn't tell any names, who sell drugs locally, and he could help the police catch them. Because he just wants to do his civic duty. Yeah, it's that guy who lives down the road, Mr. Incognito, Ron Mexico, a big fish.
And what I'm getting at is, as well as anybody else, that you can do pretty much what you want to do as long as the DA agrees with it. And the DA can definitely do anything he wants to do. He does what he wants. The fact of the matter is, if y'all were so inclined, I know of a bunch of stuff around town. And I'm not talking about a $20 bag pot. Right. I'm talking about, and I'm willing, and I'll even tell you this, I'm willing to take a polygraph with some of the things I'm going to tell you. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you some things in which I will not, and I repeat, I will not give you a name. I will give you instances, people, places, and things, but I won't tell you who it is unless we can reach an agreement on some things. I know a situation where the man has 40 kilos of coke, but I'm telling you, I can give you 40 people locally.
And you know what? In exchange for Michael helping the police catch the Invisible Man, he had the balls, the cojones, to say he would let them charge him. He would let them charge him, you know, with assaults with a deadly weapon and maybe a bit of an L fine, you know, a little love tap on the wrist.
Like in Butch's case, if you want to convict me of that, convict me of assault with a deadly weapon, convict me of whatever. I'm right, that's fine. You know, charge me $20,000, $25,000 fine. I don't care.
What a weasel. Butch was also able to tell the authorities that he recognized one of those two lads.
Who shot you? Who did this?
My repo man's son.
Sir, who did this?
Jim, he thinks,
Jim who?
I'll think of him in a minute. Jim Brooks.
Brooks?
It's not Jim, it's not a dad, it's a son.
It was Jimmy Brooks Jr., the son of a repo man Butch employed from time to time at his used car lot. Jimmy Brooks was quickly caught too. Caught while burning the clothing he had worn the night before. He confessed pretty quickly.
And what we're going to do is we're simply going to kind of walk back through the events.
I want to start from the very beginning, tell you everything.
Day one.
I'm going to be straight over.
You're going to do what now?
I'm going to tell you from the very beginning to all the way to the last time.
Okay.
Jimmy told the police that Michael Carruth was a bondsman and had posted bond, $35,000, for Jimmy Brooks 6 months earlier.
When he got me out, I know my family had no money to get me out. For some reason, he got me out.
Alright, and when you say he,
Mike Carruth got me out of jail.
Mike Carruth is a bail bondsman.
Right.
Jimmy was a small-time criminal, had 6 counts of breaking and entering cars and vehicles. So, Jimmy felt like he owed him for bailing him out, and would help him out, you know, in whatever little scheme he needed to do, you know. He had paid 35 grand, so, hey, he owed him that much at least. Also, though, Michael Carruth kind of told him, "You don't really have a choice. You're helping me out." Jimmy wasn't a victim here, though. He wasn't, you know, strong-armed into doing these things. He was more than willing.
So he comes to you, tells you gotta pay him, or he's gonna lock you up.
Right.
And you say, okay, I'm doing the best I can.
Exactly.
And then he says, well, he's gonna think of something for you to make money, and he'll come get you, tell you what it is. If you like it, y'all can do it.
Right.
Okay.
It was Michael Carruth who slit Butch's throat, and Jimmy Brooks who shot Brett. He also told them that himself and Michael were responsible for the Ratliff home invasion. Jimmy Brooks had worked for the Ratliff family's son, and so knew that maybe they might have some money.
Fucking do it, motherfucker, do it.
So you popped her where?
I popped her in the head.
You shot her in the head. Back of the head, front of the head. That's okay. You're getting it off your chest.
They, in fact, had a list. They did their homework, you know. They had a list of people in the area who they had heard, who they thought. Word on the street was they might have a bit of money stored away. See the plan? The robberies. It wasn't just, let's get a shitload of money and have a grand old time. They were robbing, doing these home invasions and kidnapping and whatnot to get enough money to set up a hydroponic marijuana system, an underground one. They were doing this all to just grow the devil's lettuce.
I think it was the brand of plants. The little small hydro plants about like this. And they're charging like $5,000 a pound for this shit, really, is what they're telling me.
Which would look a little something like this. I'm not sure if these two buttes would be capable of something like this. There was a third man too, 28-year-old James Gary, who was involved in the Ratliff home invasion. He drove them there and was in the house also. James too had been bailed out by Michael Carruth, and so essentially was hounded and forced by Michael to be involved. He was a lot less willing than Jimmy Brooks. Michael Carruth never confessed to anything, pled not guilty. However, Butch's blood was 100% on his clothing. Jimmy fully confessed and told the entire story. And so, Michael Carruth was found guilty of capital murder, attempted murder, kidnapping, and robbery. And that was just for the Boyer case. He was sentenced to death in 2003. 4 months later, Jimmy Brooks too was found guilty and sentenced to death. James Gary, for the Ratliff home invasion, was sentenced to life without parole. Jimmy and Michael would have been sentenced for that too, but they already had the death penalty. Michael Carruth and Jimmy Brooks remain on death row. What a horrific story that was just about getting enough money to grow some weed. Extremely violent, especially, one of the victims was a 12-year-old boy. And, if Butch Boyer hadn't survived, and there was a very slim chance of him actually surviving, which he did, if he had ended up in that hole in the ground, well then Michael Carruth and Jimmy Brooks, and maybe, James Gary, well, probably not him, they would have continued going through their list of who's who might have a bit of, spondulix around Russell and Lee counties. All to build a underground hydroponic system for weed. What? As I said, they're both still on death row. The final farewell date to be announced. Good thing, that's a pair of Manson lamps if ever I saw them. Sweet dreams. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I will see you, as always, real soon in the next one. Take care of yourselves. Mike out.